I brought my work laptop. I did some work today.
One, two, three, four.
If you're someone who knows it's time to put the phone down and be present, with your family or in the outdoors, this one's for you. Whether your escape is the golf course, the water, or the field, Hook and Gaff Watch Company makes watches built for time that actually matters. Assembled right here in the Carolinas, Hook and Gaff watches feature scratch-resistant sapphire crystal, lightweight titanium, and rugged designs made to handle real adventure without sacrificing style, because performance should look good too. Strap on a Hook and Gaff watch and get back to what matters most. Hook and Gaff Watch Company. Time well spent.
The start of the PGA Tour season is always interesting because it feels like golf is waking back up. Obviously, we've been in winter hibernation. You got guys coming in with fresh expectations, new equipment setups, new deals, probably new caddies, swing changes, coaches, pressure. Everybody spent the offseason convincing themselves that this year is the year they're going to take the next step. Rookies are trying to prove they belong. Mid-tier guys are trying to hold on to their cards, and the stars are trying to remind everybody why they're the stars. And early season golf has a weird energy to it, but it's not major championship intensity yet, but it's still pretty serious, right? You can see who's sharp right away. We've seen that, obviously, with Chris Gotterup. You can see, and Scotty Scheffler for that matter. You can see who put the work in. Some guys are coming out firing like those two. Some look rusty. We've seen that. Scotty Scheffler today, you wouldn't know that he just had a great start to the year already. But some guys are trying to find it and find their timing. We may have seen that a little bit with Brooks Koepka last week, but that's why the early tournaments matter more than people want to admit. They kind of set the tone for the year for a lot of guys, create momentum, start shaping narratives, start hearing things like this guy's trending, this guy's struggling. Watch out for X player this year. We'll get to a few of those here in just a little bit. Before you know it, we're heading to Florida, and then what? Masters season, right? Suddenly, everything that happened in January and February starts to feel like a foreshadowing. And could that mean it's Justin Rose's year? We'll find out. But that brings us to one of the more important early stops of the year, every year, Farmers Insurance at Torrey. It's not just another tournament. It's kind of a measuring stick. It's one of the courses where if you're playing well, you feel like your game's probably going to translate to the bigger stages, right? It has US Open DNA. It exposes you from the rough to the greens, length, coastal conditions, wind. You can't really fake it at Torrey Pines, right? In 2026, Torrey Pines gave us a headline nobody could ignore Justin Rose. He didn't just win it, pretty much put on a clinic, right? 45 years old, walked into one of the toughest venues on the PJ Tour and pretty much made it look like he had a cheat code. Wins wire to wire, which is obviously impressive by itself, but to do it at Torrey Pines, which usually has so much volatility, is a huge accomplishment. That course usually produces chaos where one bad stretch and you're done, but he didn't really have a bad stretch. He never really opened the door for anybody. But the wild part was it wasn't just one of those weeks where a guy wins because everybody else collapses, right? There weren't guys just hitting it in the water, hitting it off the earth. It wasn't a survive Sunday type of victory, right? He won like he was in total control from the first round to final putt. There was no hanging on. It was just like, how many is he going to win by? And then you go and look 23 under, tournament scoring record, right? So 23 under at Torrey Pines, like that's ridiculous. You expect it at maybe the Amex or a resort course, some kind of shootout, but Torrey's not supposed to be like that. South course, it's supposed to punish you. It's supposed to be one of those places where even par feels like you accomplished something, especially when the weather can be so weird this time of year, right? So naturally, you kind of think, did it play easy this year? Was it the weather? Was it the setup? Was it soft? And yeah, conditions can always influence scoring. But here's the thing: if it was easy, more guys would have been in there, right? He didn't just shoot a low number; like he separated big time, and that was the difference. Anybody can kind of get hot for a round or two, but to dominate a full field for 4 days at Torrey Pines is like elite status stuff. And it's kind of one of those wins that changes the way people talk about a player, right? I mean, Justin had a great year last year, almost won the Masters, but he's always been a well-respected player. He's classy, consistent, kind of one of the best ball strikers of the entire generation of players that he's come up with. But at 45, a lot of people quietly kind of start moving guys into the past his prime category, and that's probably not fair, but it happens. But he pretty much just kicked down the door and reminded everybody like you can't write off experience, right? You can't write off a guy who knows how to manage his game, knows how to flight the ball and stay patient, knows how to score when the course gives you chances and how to avoid big mistakes, when it doesn't. And it wasn't just Justin Rose, right? The leaderboard behind him was super interesting all the way through. You had guys like Pearson Coody, Siwoo Kim, Rio Haisasune. I think that's pretty close. All those guys in the mix, they were just way back, right? Uh, but that does matter for these guys. I mean, those three are Siwoo would be the most recognizable name, but Torrey's not one of those places where you're kind of like faking it, right? If you're contending there, you can probably do it anywhere else, and you're doing something right. So you're striking it well. It's early in the season. That's exactly what you want to see going into the year, and establishing yourself before the calendar, really heats up. One other storyline that we saw from last week was Brooks Koepka returning to the PGA Tour. That was obviously a major thing coming into it. He didn't really contend, but he did create noise. Obviously, he tends to do that. He's one of those players where when he shows up, the tournament just kind of feels bigger. There's an edge to it. He's kind of got an edge about him. There's curiosity. People are watching a little more closely. Adds another layer to the early season. Like, what is his plan this year? What's he going to play in? Obviously, he's going to be gearing up for the majors. What else is he going to be playing in? And whatever that answer ends up being, it's going to be a headline as being kind of the major guy back from Live. So zoom out from Farmers, ended up being a really great early season tournament. An absolutely legendary performance from a classy veteran guy. Kind of some emerging names coming up, in that second place T2 finish there. And obviously the Brooks Koepka storyline that kind of pulled some extra attention on the event anyway, brought ESPN to the coverage, right? First day. So, biggest takeaway, definitely though, Justin Rose absolutely dominating. And if he's capable of doing that now in January, the rest of the PGA Tour is definitely like on notice for this because I think we're under 60 days until the Masters. So,
Parker, I don't think I could have said it any better myself.
thank you.
I
That
think,
was all off the cuff.
well, I think the only thing that could possibly be better than that monologue is the gear you're wearing right now.
Wow. Thank you for that. I do feel now, we didn't plan it this time. Last week, I did make like a right before the show change to kind of match you, but check out the shirt. You're looking stylish there.
I mean, great minds think alike.
Thank
What
you.
can I
Let's
say?
get that. Let's get that on there. Yep. Cricket. Boom. Loving it. Dude, this thing's really comfortable, by the way. I really like this. Did anybody else get the diamond print fancy button up thing?
No, but I do really like this shirt. This Oxford shirt. This is
It's kind of
pro
an Oxford shirt.
it's kind of it was probably the one that I was the most, I don't know if skeptical is the right word, but uh, unsure
Curious.
of when I ordered it, but it has been the shirt that I have worn the most for
It's
sure.
awesome. It is a long sleeve that looks like a like from right here, Fabling, you totally look like you've got the button down gone. However, you could go play golf in it if you wanted to, right? It's a
And
polo essentially.
so much more comfortable.
It's really cool. It'd be great with a little sweater. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, cricket obviously awesome partner. Like I said, less than 60 days to the Masters, boys. So gear up, get your green cricket shirts. Check them out. They've got a good green. Justin and I know all about it. They call it a tennis jacket, I think, but that may find its way down to Augusta National this spring. So, boys, we had a fun episode tonight. This is our architecture week. We've got Jay Blasi on, golf course architect. He's been involved with some really nice projects. He's also on the architecture panel for Golfweek magazine, and just a really interesting guy. Um, just coming off of a long trip to Casa de, a long journey, I should say, Casa de Campo. I think he said he's been up for 22 hours. So to do this, a round of applause for Jay. Thank you, Jay, for coming on. But before we get to that, we're getting ready to introduce a new segment. This is a, what are we going to call this? A preview of our segment because we don't have our fourth tonight. We're not going to start without him, but we are going to start our own version of a one and done season long, most of the season long fantasy golf journey. But we're doing it a little different. Our show records on Thursday night, for those of you not familiar with our process. So we are going to make picks on Thursday night based on the round one leaderboard. And then we're going to see who makes the best selection. However, you can only pick each player one time. Now, moving forward, if someone is not here during an episode, Ryan, what happens to him?
They get the last guy to make the cut.
They do. Now, I think we're gonna create a new. I think we should give them their choice. There will more than likely be lots of ties for the last place spot to make the cut. So I say we give them their pick from that lot, and then you take it
Fair
from there.
enough. Fair enough.
So we won't do that to Hunter tonight. We'll see how although that's a tough one to give up, this WM Phoenix Open. But we'll start next time we're all together. Hopefully that'll be next week. And I think what we did we decide the loser has to do something. So you just don't want to finish last. I think that makes it more fun because three people get to pick on the other person. Whereas like if you're the winner, it's kind of like it's just one person kind of deal. So the loser is going to have to do something golf related. I saw somewhere where I think it was fantasy baseball group. They made the loser go have a tryout for the local minor league team. He had to go try. He had to go to batting practice. So I don't know. Maybe we make the loser go sign up for a Monday qualifier and go play it.
I don't know. We came up with some pretty bad punishments after pool games in college, so so,
Uh,
some of those may not be safe for the
can't repeat
pod.
some of those. No,
We could
we have
we could
children now.
we could probably find something good for everybody. So we will work on that. But boys, another fun one. Great week. Hope everybody had a great week. We had a little bit of a week off in our recording session. We popped out an older episode last week, so we haven't seen each other in just a little bit. Anybody have any exciting news or anything that happened in the last couple of weeks that we need to discuss? Ryan's on vacation again. Shocker. Shocker,
Yep.
everybody.
Yep.
He's not at home.
It's,
He's on vacation.
I brought my work laptop. I did some work today, if that
When the
makes you feel
man's
any
not
better.
at the beach, he's on the slopes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what he does in the spring and fall because summer he's at the beach, winter he's at the ski slope. So are you skiing or snowboarding?
Skiing.
Okay.
Never
That's,
tried snowboarding.
yeah. Yeah. I know they say it's better for your knees to snowboard. I just don't like feeling strapped to the board like that. I like the independent feeling of having my legs movable.
I am neither. This is my second time skiing in my entire life. The last time was, I think, 15 years ago. So I'm not a skier or a snowboarder. I just have kids now. So they were probably skiing better today at the end of their first day than I have on either of my first two attempts. But I didn't get hurt. Nobody else did. So it was a win today.
Well, when I was in kindergarten, I was skiing and did not know how to stop properly. I used the pizza method
Of course.
and I was not stopping properly coming down to the bottom and I ran into one of those rebar posts
Yeah.
that hold up the nets right below my kneecap, broke my leg. My mother, I still love her, but she didn't think I was that hurt. She's like calling me over, walk over here, come on over. I'm like probably just bawling my eyes out come back over. You're okay. And I'm like, I'm not okay. Like I'm not. I'm 6 and my leg's broken. So then they have to take me inside and pull the ski boot off of my broken leg, which was awful. Go home. I got my favorite class of kindergarten was like computer class. You got to play all these games. My mom's like, you got to go to school the next day. Got to go to school. You got computer class. I can't go to Mom. I can't go to school. So she calls a doctor and he's like, well, just look, see if there's like a knot. If it's broken, there'll be like a knot. No knot. My dad's out of town. No knot. You need to go to school. I can't go to school. So she takes me to the doctor. The knot was on like the underneath side of my leg. I have to go get a cast that goes up above my knee. They won't give me crutches because I'm like so small. The cast is so heavy. I can't really like walk on crutches. So I have to be in a wheelchair, which means I have to take a different method of getting to school. I think I got to get out of school early. But all that to say, be careful with your time on the slopes. And I do not suggest the pizza method once you increase your speed above 8 miles an hour.
I feel so much better that I got through this first day and all my kids were unharmed.
Yeah, your
That
kids are
sounds like
probably
worst case
smarter than
scenario.
ours.
I did plan a golf trip. I wish it was with you guys,
Oh,
but
imagine that.
I did finalize a golf trip, so that's fun.
What
Looking
golf
forward to
trip? Do we
that.
get to hear details on that, or is that something you want to save? Do you want to tease it and save it for later?
Uh, sure. Well,
Oh, gosh. Okay. Now I'm curious. See, it worked. Good job. I,
hope I
I,
don't let you down with the
I,
details.
I don't know how I'm gonna sleep tonight now. Is this the Pinehurst trip? Like Kingsmill? Like, where are we going here?
No.
Um, so we got to figure out our trip. I'm thinking
I couldn't
Austin.
wait around for you guys any longer. I had to just book
Well,
something
I
else.
know I've totally dropped the ball on the March trip. I totally dropped the ball on the March trip. I couldn't tell where we were with the big group on that probably, but I do think an Austin trip in June, May or June. I think that's when I can fly out of Asheville to get there direct. June and Austin in June. I mean, isn't that the time to go? Texas in
Yeah,
June,
May might be better.
sweltering. You go get some hot barbecue after like 36 holes of
No.
flooding. No, I can be down for May. Long weekend trip with the boys. Go check out some new reds.
The trip I just finalized is in June, so I'm not sure I could be approved for two in the same month.
Well, uh, for 2 golf trips, yeah, because you got 3 beach trips. How could you fit in another golf trip? There's only four
Exactly.
weekends in June, most Junes. All right, Fabling, you got any trips planned? I mean, you're probably still moving into your house. Your biggest trip was from street to street in Nashville.
Well, we've been all over the place the last week with the ice ice Mageddon in Nashville. Um, yeah, we were without power for 4 days, which was um fortunate. Is there? I mean, there's some people. I just was at dinner tonight with someone who we're going on 2 weeks and still doesn't have power back. So,
Good gracious.
yeah, Nashville got
That
hit pretty hard.
that becomes rough. The power situation is a big deal after a little while. That is tough. Well, hopefully things continue to improve there. I know, I mean, we got basically nothing from the first storm, and we got about 6 inches of snow from this most recent storm with, you know, no ice or anything. I swear it's just there's like a dome around the mountains anymore. We just don't get big snow. All these other places are getting it now. How much did you guys get this last? Did you get some, Ryan, this week or this
No, I mean
weekend?
the first one that went through, I think we got an inch and then it turned to rain and melted. The second one, I think we got 2 inches. And here in Southeast Virginia, that closed the school, which it did. But if we got 6 inches, I mean, I don't think our area would know what to do with that. It happens periodically, but um, we're just so close to the Chesapeake Bay and the ocean. It just seems like there's some warm air or just air in general that pushes it further north or turns it to rain or something. We just don't really get, we go lots of winters without snow at all. And then if we get it, it's a question of whether it sticks or not. So we don't have to usually worry about that kind of thing.
I hear you. Well, boys, it's always good to catch up. Big news for the Charlotte Hornets tonight. Kobe White, Tar Heel, getting traded
Yep.
uh, to the Hornets. That's exciting news for us North Carolinians and Tar Heel fans. So that's your other sports report. And otherwise, listen to Jay, learn some things. I think we would say this very much just scratched the surface of the golf course architecture and rating conversation. So this is a great conversation. If you are curious about golf course architecture and about the rating of golf courses by these different, Golfweek magazine panelists and different magazine raters. If you're curious about those kind of things, I think this will be an insightful and educational podcast. And if you're a little bit further, if you're a black diamond, Ryan, you'll understand that reference with all your skiing expertise. If you're more on the black diamond slope of your golf architecture journey, we will have some more deep dives into this. This is just one feature of golf course architecture that we will get into all year. And it's great to have Jay on. I really appreciate him, and I appreciate you fellas. David,
Always
what
good to
golf
talk to
course
you
are you
guys.
at? The honors course right now? You at the honors behind you
In my mind
and on your screen?
and on the screen. So until I get the house set up, I'll just put different golf courses up
Hey, I
behind
like
me.
it. It's like, where is Justin today?
I think that's number 9.
Justin is there virtually, and then it's where is Ryan today actually? All right, boys. Thanks for doing it. We'll catch everybody next week.
Talk to you soon.
All right, folks. Welcome back to another episode of For Love of Golf. We've got three of our co-hosts here: Justin Fabling, Ryan Martin, Parker Reeves, yours truly. Unfortunately, Hunter is under the weather tonight, so he won't be here, but we've replaced him tonight with Mr. Jay Blasi. Jay, golf course architect, Golf Week Architecture Advisory Panel member. Jay is had a long day, which he'll maybe tell us about in a little bit. It's been a good day, but it's been a long day, I think. So he made time for us tonight, which we really appreciate. So Jay, welcome. Thanks for coming on, and we appreciate you making the time after a busy trip.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. So let's get started where we kind of always start, just at the beginning. Kind of, I know you're a California guy. Tell us kind of about growing up, where you grew up, and like what your relationship was with golf as a kid growing up, and how you got into the game a little bit.
Yeah, so I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. My dad fell in love with golf. He grew up on the south side of Chicago, and as a kid, he caddied at Beverly Country Club. And so that's how he fell in love with golf. And he loved golf so much that he ended up building a putting green in the backyard. And so my whole life, he brought a club to the hospital when I was born. And so I've been chipping and putting at 2 and competing at 4. So really, golf's kind of been a part of my life, my whole life. And even as a little kid, as a 4-year-old, we'd go out to dinner and I'd take the placemat and flip it over and draw golf holes in crayon. So this is kind of all I've ever wanted to do, and all probably because of a backyard putting green.
It's a pretty good way to grow up. Backyard putting. Are you a good putter?
I was. I'm 47 now. I've had 3 putters in my life. The first one was cut down and real tiny. And then I graduated to a Hogan radial putter, which I used as a junior. And then at some point in middle school, I stole my dad's 1968 Old Master blade. Looks like a 8802. And I've been using that for 35 years now or whatever. It's got the original grip with big chunks missing out of the grip and everything. So
You and I are from a
I
different
was
planet on that.
I was very good chipping and putting. My nickname as a little one was Mud, Mister Up and Down. I was always tiny. I was always like the second smallest kid in school. So, even in high school, I could barely hit the golf ball 200 yards, but I could get up and down from anywhere with a bag over my head. And now I don't even know how to hold the club around the green, and it's just brutal. So it's very frustrating.
Mud Blasi. What a great nickname, though. You should keep
My
that one
uncle
around.
gave me that one.
I think
Can't live up to it
Parker's.
anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we all get there at some point.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think Parker's probably had 3 putters in the last 2 days, so he probably can't relate to that one very well.
Yeah, that is a bad habit of mine for sure.
I
So
do I
so it
do now
sounds
have
like you
lots
were
of
kind of.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
I was just going
go
to say
ahead.
now I have people who bring me that they're like, "Oh, I've got one of those old master putters in my garage." And so I have random people handing me old master putters now.
Got lots of backups.
Yeah.
Only one gamer though.
Yeah.
I've got a 8802 sitting here right next to me. That's like my office putter that I putt with.
Very nice.
So it sounds like, you knew from a very early age what you wanted to do. Was it truly just that was as long as you can remember, what you wanted to do for the rest of your life, or was there a certain time or a certain golf course that really made you think that this is really what I want to do?
So yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid, all through elementary school and probably middle school, and then definitely in high school. If you looked in my notebooks, there might be a few math equations or writing assignments, but there were a lot of golf holes, drawn in the corners and whatever. So that was certainly something that was always there. We were really lucky as a kid. I would get to travel around. For spring break, we'd go to Hilton Head Island or we'd go down to the Panhandle of Florida or something like that. And so I got to see a lot of different golf courses. Harbor Town was probably uh, the the one that was on TV that I got to see first and things like that. So I got exposed to a lot of golf. Um, and in terms of, it was kind of always something that was there. It was ever present. But for whatever reason, even though this like kind of occupied all my time and thoughts, when it was time to go to college, I wasn't 100% like committed to that. I just assumed that I needed to go into business and just become a businessman. And it was really my parents who at some point said, you've got something you love, you have to go do this. You can always be a businessman. And so at some point there was kind of this nudge, and I figured out that most people got a degree in landscape architecture, and so that's what I did.
Where'd you get that?
At the University of Wisconsin. So I stayed home as a
Badger.
I never missed a football or basketball game from like age 4 on. So there was no doubt where I was going to school.
So in your experience in golf course architecture, can you break down the balance of aesthetics of a course versus shot values and maybe take that a step further and describe how the business of golf course architecture balances the art versus the engineering and the science of building a course?
Yeah, I think that's one of the beauties of golf architecture, golf design, is that it really is kind of a blend of art and science. Unlike true art, it's not just meant to be witnessed, it's a playing field, it's an active playing field. And so as such, there are elements to it that need to be able to function. So whether that's agronomy or drainage or different aspects of it that are really important. So um, I think the thing that's it's really easy to kind of talk about golf design and golf architecture in the abstract. The reality is that with any project, There's a very different site than any other site around, and each site has its own opportunities and constraints and different variables, whether it's climate or soils or landscape, could be amount of land, what the property boundaries look like, topography, all that kind of stuff. And perhaps the most under discussed part of all of it is that there's an owner, there's a client. And so the reality is, as a golf designer, it's my job to help the client achieve their goals. And those goals could be drastically different. For some, they're trying to create the hardest golf course around, and others want the most beautiful golf course around, and others want to sell housing lots. And so, depending on who the client is and what the site is, that's going to dictate, so many different things from that point. So, in terms of the balance versus art and science, the science has to be there, right? If the golf course is going to function, it's not going to last very long, and it's not going to hold up and survive as a business. So that's truly foundational. And then, the hard part of that is that's not the sexy part. That's most of that is underground, right? So whether that's the irrigation system or the drainage or the soils underneath the greens, things like that, those are the things that the golfers don't see. So it might be the majority of the investment that's made, but it's just not the sexy part. People are always drawn to bunkers and interesting green complexes and things like that. So it is a perfect marriage, and one has to work with the other.
So we're kind of going, obviously, right now, we're talking a little bit about architecture. We're going to go some more into that. And we've got some questions too about like rating that we'll get into as well, because that's part of what you are involved in as well. But kind of going back to this kind of plays in both of those lanes. But when you go to a property for the first time, and I guess it's going to be different, whether it's a new build or like a restoration or renovation. Maybe you can give us just a little bit of a peek behind the curtain from each of those angles. But like, say on a new build, like what are you looking for the first time you walk a property? And then maybe when you're going to look at a project for like a renovation or a restoration, what are some of the things that you're looking for first there?
Well, more often than not, prior to actually visiting the site, I will have talked to somebody, owner, friends, whoever puts me in touch with the property. I will have probably gotten a description of the property and perhaps of the goals of the project. Is it 18 holes? Is it 36 holes? Is it public? Is it private? That type of stuff. Um, Usually when I talk to somebody, the first thing I'll do is I'll jump on Google Earth and try to look at the property and get a sense of it. If they have mapping, if they have a topographic map or an aerial photo or things like that, those might be things that they send to me before I even get to the site. So what I'm doing there is I'm assessing the land. How big is the property? What are the boundaries like? What's the topography like? Um, I'll have a sense as to where it is, and so what the climate is like. Well, I'll ask a million questions about soils and all sorts of other things. I'll ask about the goals, public, private, fancy, daily fee, whatever. So I'll already have a ton of background probably before I ever get to the site. What I'll probably be looking for when I get to the site is all the stuff you can't see on a map, right? So by looking at a topo map, I can have a pretty good feel for what it's going to look and feel like. What I won't know are what are the off-site views going to look like. Is there a beautiful view to a mountain to the east? Or is there a bad view to an interstate to the west? Is there an area that smells really bad? Is there a little rumple in the ground? A topo map can give you a broad sense as to where the high parts and where the lows are. And is it gently rolling or is it severe? But it won't show you what's happening actually on the ground plane. So is there an interesting rock outcropping over here? Or all the things that you can't see on a map are the things that I'm kind of trying to look at. Again, having probably spent some time ahead of time, I might already have a couple of ideas and going around make sense out in the field, and just kind of taking notes as to, where would you start and stop? What would be a logical clubhouse location? Things like that. So it's really pretty big picture to start out with, and then come up with some ideas, and then you keep refining and zooming in after that.
Awesome. Thank you.
So this question's a little bit more abstract, but you if you could kind of distill it down into a sentence or two, what is your definition of a great golf hole?
Yeah, really good. Certainly one that makes you think. I like holes that offer a unique puzzle to solve, and me personally, I'm a fan where there's multiple ways to solve it. So I love a golf hole that will give you different options, that could play differently in different weather conditions, things like that. So, to me, a golf hole that provides different options and makes you think, is one that you'll never get bored with.
Yeah, and this question probably could be answered similarly, but in your opinion, what makes a memorable or forgettable routing? I mean, if you have to think on one hole and that makes it a great hole, is a memorable routing one where you have to think on all 18 holes, or is it the aesthetics of the mountains off in the distance or the desert, or like is it more of the design of the holes or the setting, or is it just your preference and a combination of both?
So routing is something that's really, really important to me. It's something that I spend a great deal of time on, and really take a great deal of pride in. I think for many, many people, when they think about the routing, they just think about the holes themselves. And in my opinion, the routing is much more than that. So it's not only tee to green, but it's green to tee, and how those holes connect and interact. So there are certain golf courses that might have 18 wonderful holes, but if they're not connected in a way that takes you on a compelling journey, then the sum, then the whole is less than the sum of the parts. And then there are other golf courses that the way that they are constructed and the way that you flow from one hole to another adds to the experience in such a way that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So, to me, what you're trying to do is maximize the potential of the site. Um, from a routing standpoint, to me, that is achieved by let's try to identify what makes this site special, and it's going to be different every time. But if you're lucky enough to have coastline or frontage along a creek or a river, how do you use that? Is there enough room where you can have holes where the water is on the left and on the right, where you can play towards it and play away from it, so you're interacting with it in different ways? If there's interesting topography, how do you interact with that? Mackenzie was brilliant in terms of identifying a great natural feature and then routing the golf course to take full advantage of it. If you think of Cypress Point, you've got this big dune in the middle, and he routed the entire golf, 2/3 of the golf course around that dune. 3 plays towards it, 4 plays off of it, 6 plays into it, 7 plays off of it, 9 plays into it, 10 plays off of it, 11 plays into it, and 12 plays away. So, and he did that at multiple golf courses. So it's really about trying to identify what's really special in the land, and then taking the golfer on a compelling journey to hit those spots.
Kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, do you think can routing, I mean, I know to architects it's probably fairly similar, but I would imagine, does the definition of routing mean something different kind of to every architect? Like I know, like you said, a lot of it has to do with not only tee to green, but also green to tee. So I mean, obviously you're talking about, some courses that have different features, as you're walking the course, or, some courses now are taking you on these long journeys on a cart, which some people like, some people don't. Is there, do you think that there's room for people to have a different take on what routing actually means, if that makes sense?
I think I think for the most part, it's fairly universal what routing means. It's essentially where do the holes go and how do they connect, right? But I think there's certainly plenty of interpretation for what's a good routing, right?
Hmm.
Certain architects have no problem with long green to tee walks or cart rides from holes to hole, or abrupt elevation changes from one hole to another. I just got done doing a project out here in California called Poppy Ridge, where it was a golf course that was built in the 90s. It was a fairly severe piece of ground. There was 200 feet of elevation change. But the way that that golf course was routed originally in the 90s, all the holes were pretty much parallel to each other, with mounding down both sides. And anywhere there was any elevation, they didn't really want to deal with that. So they'd kind of lay the hole wherever was flat, and then you'd take a 250-yard cart ride up to a different elevation and then play another flattish hole. And so we essentially built a new golf course on the site of an old golf course, and completely rerouted it. And by doing so, took what was pretty much an unwalkable golf course, and made it walkable. So now, if you play the 6,500-yard tees, if you did before and then now you play the 6,500-yard tees today, the walk is 2,000 yards shorter and 450 feet less elevation change to deal with. So that's all just by routing and earthwork as well. So I think the definition of routing is pretty universal, but people's opinions on what's good and what's bad and how to route on a property is very, very different.
Yeah, that's amazing what you can do just, with some creativity and a different mind in there looking at it, to take a course that, you would think, obviously knowing that the green to tee walks are so long, maybe not, but you think about the courses originally it was much flatter. You think, oh, well, that might be easier to walk, but it's really not because of all the in between stuff, like you said.
Right.
Yeah, that's really neat. So okay, we're gonna shift a little bit and move into kind of like restoration renovation. So, in your opinion, is there a difference, and what is the difference between restoration and renovation?
Well, restoration is putting something back to what it was. Now, there's still lots of interpretation as to, okay, what are we restoring? Are we restoring everything, or are we kind of cherry picking what we want to restore? What snapshot in time are we trying to restore to? So, restoration typically is going to apply to golf courses that are, over 80 years old, right? Been around a long time. And to my knowledge, I would guess that 95% of restorations are faithful in some areas, but maybe not in all areas. So sometimes you'll hear about, okay, well, we restored it to 1924, but we really want to host this championship, and that bunker was only 240 off the tee, so we ended up moving it down to 280 off the tee or whatever, right? So I think it's very rare that you see something that is, kind of a true restoration. So, but at least that is kind of the guiding principle is we're trying to go back to a moment in time. We're trying to be authentic to the original designer's vision and intent. Renovation can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So that could just be a T complex renovation. That could be a bunker renovation. It could be a greens renovation. The majority of the projects that I've worked on would fall under the category of renovation, but they end up being essentially a new golf course on the same site with some major rerouting. So is that a new golf course or is that a renovation? Things like that. So renovation has a very, very wide range of what that could mean.
Sure.
That makes sense. So here's a question that is kind of timely for me personally, as the club where I play is about to embark on a possible renovation, restoration, however you define it. Um, so in your mind and in your experience, what's the most common mistake that clubs can make during these renovation processes?
Oh, there's a million of them. Um, you know, I think again, I'll sound like a broken record, but every club is unique. Every site is different. So the right answer at one facility isn't necessarily the right answer at another facility. So in my opinion, the right process, and I just wrote an article about this that I think we'll end up publishing in Golfweek, but the the important thing for a club to do is to go through a thorough process to come up with a good vision and then ultimately implement it. And in my opinion, the best process you can have would be to start by doing what I call a golf course audit, which is a thorough study of the course as it is today, both from a design and a maintenance standpoint. And so when I do that, it's a huge 150 page report outlining just how things are today, studying all aspects of the golf course, hole by hole, tees, greens, bunkers, paths, trees, water features, everything. Just look at each thing, look at the history, look at the routing, look at all that kind of stuff. Break that down, and that's really your foundation. And what you'll learn going through that is that you'll identify what's working, what's not working, where the golf course is in its life cycle. The parts of a golf course don't last forever. An irrigation system doesn't last 100 years. It typically lasts up to 30 years. So same thing with drainage pipes and things like that. And so you'll have a sense as to, okay, where are we in our life cycle? Are we due for investment and different things? And so once you have that data, then in my opinion, a great way to go about it is to engage the membership, educate the membership, explain to them what you learned, and then ask the members to set goals. It's not very productive to have 300 or 400 people weighing in on the bunker on the third hole. You're going to get 300 or 400 different opinions, and 300 or 400 of them are unqualified, right? So that's not very productive. But what is productive is to engage them, make them feel like they're part of the process, and ask them to help kind of guide where do we want the club to go. Do we want to be the hardest golf course in the state? Or do we want to be a golf course that's fun and playable for everybody? Do we want to have better, bigger practice facilities? Is that really important to us because that's going to differentiate us from the other local clubs? Who do we want to be, type of thing. And so by going through that process, you'll be able to identify some guiding lights. And then you have the architect work with a very small committee, somewhere between 2 and 5 people, and look at a wide range of ideas, have the committee weigh in on those ideas representing the membership as a whole, and then you refine those into a vision for the future. And that's the master plan. That's just the vision for the future. That's not a project. That's usually pretty easy. You can get through that process pretty harmlessly. Once you get to that point and you have that vision, that's when the fireworks start in terms of, okay, what are we going to do? When are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? What's it going to cost? How much downtime is there going to be? Do we do it all at once or do we break it into phases? Everybody's going to have an opinion on that. And so, but the important thing is to go through the steps, get a great vision for the future, and then try to come up with a good game plan as to how to execute it.
There you go, Fabling. Take some notes.
No, makes a lot of sense. I think that the maintenance piece that you brought up is a huge component of it because it's certainly one thing to design it, but if you can't maintain it in the way it was designed, then it's just kind of doomed from the start.
Those are really important aspects that, again, they're not sexy. People don't like talking about them, but it's important to know who you are. Do you have a staff of 45 people to maintain your golf course? And can you then have, 150,000 square feet of bunkers? Or do you have 8 people maintaining your golf course? And maybe it's more appropriate to have 40,000 square feet of bunkers. Those things are important. And, more often than not, many clubs see what happens down the street and they want to do that, or one up them, or whatever. And ultimately you want to find out, hey, what makes us special? Who do we want to be? How do we maximize those things?
So also to kind of continue that discussion, when a club or just a course is looking at doing a restoration or renovation, and they're trying to potentially balance tradition with modernization, I would think one of the easiest things, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, to modernize would be like drainage under a bunker, because you can just dig out the bunker, put in something better, and then put the sand back on top, and it looks pretty much the same, but it's been improved. Or just drainage in general. You can dig something up, put better drainage in, and put grass back on top, and it looks pretty much the same. But what are some other aspects of modernization other than, I guess, just lengthening a golf course, especially if a property just doesn't have any more land to use? What are some ways that clubs can modernize, but also at least aesthetically make it look still like it used to, or restore it back to a traditional aesthetic?
Yeah, so again, I think every club's different. They're all going to have a different set of goals. One thing that I've noticed over the last 15 years is the importance of practice facilities. So, most clubs built around 1900 didn't really have practice facilities. They might have had some area to go kind of hit balls, or a practice field where you go have your own shag bag or something like that. But they didn't really have a big traditional driving range, short game area, things like that. And so, in many, many locations, especially if you're trying to attract younger members, they don't have 8 hours to come to the club and eat and practice and play 18 holes and eat and drink afterwards. They might have an hour over their lunch hour, or an hour after work before they got to go pick up the kids or something like that. And so, having additional things. So, for many clubs, how do we have the best practice facilities we can on our property? And that might mean shifting holes around in order to make space for that. So routing is certainly a way that a golf course can modernize, right? Um, there's obviously, there's been advances in distance. The golf ball goes differently now. So assessing where your hazards are today and who do they impact. Right now there's many golf courses that have bunkers that are 180 yards off the tee on the right hand side. So for a 5 handicap or lower, that bunker is not in play in any way, shape, or form. But for a 15 or 20 handicapper, or a senior or a lady, or somebody who just doesn't hit it as far, that might very much be in play. And if that's a deep bunker, is that who you want to be punishing, and how? So understanding how the golf course plays for your membership, and then being able to try to address that to meet goals. So those are design ways. And then, to your point earlier, there's all sorts of construction techniques and new infrastructure. So whether it's new irrigation or new drainage, or laying out paths in different places, things like that, different grass types. There's a lot of regrassing of golf courses that's going on lately. So all of those things can play a big role as well.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I mean, obviously, um, you're trying to, bring a lot of these courses into the modern era, but keep a lot of their character. Um, Along those lines, a little bit, but kind of different. What we've run into, I would say, more over the last, I don't know, 30 years, and you can correct me on that because I'd say probably longer than that, but you know, golf is kind of been under fire, as not being super great for environmentally. What are some things that people are doing now in the world of golf course architecture to try to make things, a little bit more environmentally friendly, um, for, the land that it sits on and the surrounding land, really?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of global stuff that you could talk about. I'm a huge advocate of reining in the golf ball. Um, and I could even see a scenario where we go further than that, where we just say, for the good of the game and the health of the game for the next 200 years, let's collectively decide that we're going to engineer the golf ball in such a way that the longest golf course is going to be 6,000 yards. So you can still hit all the same, if you engineered the golf ball, you could still arrange it in such a way that you're hitting, you have long par fours and short par fours and medium par fours and all the way through. But if you did that, then the footprint for golf would get smaller, right? And now 100 acres or 120 acres would be very viable. Whereas today, with golf courses over 7,000 yards, we're at 150, 200 acres, some much more than that. And what happens with that is now we have more area to construct. So it costs more to buy, more to construct. So it costs more to build. Now there's more to maintain. So it costs more to maintain. So now we have to charge more. So everything is just more costly. And then from an environmental standpoint, more inputs, more water, all that kind of stuff. So, how realistic that is, very unrealistic. But if we were really forward thinking and wanted golf to thrive for the next 200 years, that could be a way that we could do that. So that's kind of a global picture. Then you get into more local or regional. I live out in California. Water is the big issue out here, and so understanding whether that's the footprint, how big it is, how many acres of turf you need to maintain, or an irrigation system. A new irrigation system is far more efficient than an old irrigation system in terms of the amount of water you lose, in terms of just how it sprays and where it sprays and all that kind of stuff. So I did a project in Orange County, Southern California, golf course that dated back to the 1920s. It was basically looked and played like a 1970s golf course, very artificial, wall-to-wall turf, millions of trees. They had added lakes and waterfalls and stuff. And we ended up redoing the whole golf course, and we opened up the property. We have far less turf, so more native grasses and things like that. And so we reduced the water use by 35 to 40%, and we, and had new turf out there. So at Poppy Ridge, we introduced Bermuda grass where there used to be cool season grass, which uses 30% less water. And the way that we laid out the golf course, the fairways are wider in the landing areas than they were before. They went from an average of 35 yards wide to 55 yards wide, but we were able to reduce the amount of acreage of turf on the golf course by 15 acres. So just where you allocate the turf can result in water savings and things like that. I worked on a project in Houston. Water is not the issue there. It's flooding. And so the golf course there had actually flooded, and they lost their clubhouse. And so there we had to rebuild the golf course in such a way that it could handle these big storm events that are coming more and more often. And so we rerouted golf holes. We eliminated some lakes. So now there's these big ravines that in a big storm, they can fill up with water without losing the golf course and it being still playable. So it depends on where you are in the country or where you are in the world, what the environmental concern is. But I will say that I believe the golf course industry as a whole and golf course superintendents in particular have been doing a fantastic job over the last 20, 30 years of we're doing much better, and we're much better storytellers as well. So much of the poor perception that we had was we weren't getting the right information out there, and we're doing a much better job of that now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this is interesting. When I was in high school, I did an internship at a on the maintenance team at a local golf course and ended up doing a water study where we tested the water coming into the golf course and exiting the golf course. We actually found that the quality of the water was improved as it was leaving the golf course because it acted as a buffer, where I think most people would have thought the opposite. And so, yeah, I think the just the messaging is a huge piece there too. Going back to maintenance again, what is one maintenance practice that you wish every golf course adopted?
Really good, I guess. Um, I don't know if this is a direct answer to your question or not, but I would really beg, plead, hope that we could rein in green speeds. When green speeds get above 12, you have to lose contour in greens. Basically, all the greens need to become flat in order to accommodate the speed. And so the modern turf grasses are capable of being maintained at speeds above 12, but just because you can doesn't mean that's the right thing to do. And so, um, uh, as a designer, I try to understand, okay, what is the target speed going to be, because that will dictate how much contour I'll put into a green. But invariably, it just seems like, you know, everybody wants faster, faster, faster. They never ever slow down, and I think we've really hit a tipping point in terms of where architecture is going to really, really suffer. So that would be one thing. There's a million things that they're doing now that I think are really good. They're so much more efficient, and they've got so much more data in terms of whether it's chemical use or water. Where are we putting it? When are we putting it? How are we putting it down? Taking advantage of those technologies, I think, is important. But the one thing that I'm worried about is just green speeds.
Kills creativity, I guess, right? From a designer perspective. I mean,
Yeah,
it's got to be hard
well,
as an artist.
and I think people are under the impression that faster greens will differentiate better putters, and I don't necessarily believe that's the case. A tour pro is very comfortable on a green that's 14 on a Stimpmeter. That's not an issue for them. But navigating interesting contours at 11 and a half, I think might be a better test. So I think it just brings out better golf all around.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to that point, I think there's, like you said, there's probably a point where you meet somewhere in the middle. I mean, you don't want them to be crazy, lots of crazy contours to where, you got to have the green super slow. But I mean, 11 and a half is a quick green, I mean, that's fast green. So if you go 11 and a half with some contour like that, that's where I think you're right. You really bring in the better player, because you have to read greens at that point, right? You got to know how to read slope and read grain sometimes, and play for different things. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And I'm not even a designer, but I could see where that would be really put a lot of handcuffs on you, and why that would be super important, going into it, because I need to know what you guys want before I'm going to do anything to the greens.
Yep.
What
Oh,
is something that you wish more golfers understood about architecture? Something that maybe it would help them appreciate, or um, just have, less complaints that are just unnecessary if they just understood something better about course architecture.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think for so many people, they equate great maintenance to great design. If they go to a golf course and the greens are smooth and 13 on the Stimpmeter, and the fairways are bright green, and the roughs are dark green, and the bunkers have white sand in them, and everything's perfectly maintained, they oftentimes think, oh, that's a great golf course. And so I think, to me, one thing that I would hope that the average golfer would try to take a little bit maybe more note of is the actual architecture and the strategy and the variety and the routing of the golf course, and how do the holes connect, and what questions are they asking you to answer, and are they giving you different ways to answer that puzzle. um, there's so many golf courses where you look at the approach shot into a green, and it's an oval green with bunker left, bunker right. There's kind of one way to hit that shot, and it's over and over and over again. And so understanding that, um, it's not necessarily a direct correlation between high end maintenance and good architecture.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna take the architecture hat off for just a little bit, although it's still very closely related, and move into kind of the golf course rating side of things. So you and I talked about this, but I'm a panelist for Golfweek, and obviously you're on our kind of our advisory panel for that. So I'd love to know, kind of, it's similar, I guess, but also a little bit different when you're rating a golf course versus building a golf hole. But can you tell us, like, when you're going out to a golf course and if you're going to evaluate a hole, a single hole for, your rating, and you're going hole by hole, kind of, how can you tell us, like, what your process would be for rating a hole, what you're looking for on each hole, and then how that kind of ties in and translates into the overall kind of course rating at the end? Because, one hole doesn't breed variety, but, you know, three, four, five, six holes might do that. And where does that kind of fall on the single hole scale, and then once you tie everything back in together?
Yeah, so I've probably done work with Golfweek for about 7 years now. Brad Klein was the one who kind of started the Raider program and came up with the criteria that's used. So there's 10 criteria with Golfweek. Golf Digest has a different set of criteria. Golf Magazine has a different set of criteria. What I don't focus as much on an individual hole. Again, to your point, some of the things that Golf Week talks about is the variety and the memorability of the par threes, par fours, their par fives. They talk about the green complexes. They talk about the routing, different things like that. And so, what I'm doing when I'm looking at a golf course is I'm trying not to be so focused on today, but think about the big picture. So if I walk and I look at a green complex, when you're there one particular day, the whole location is where it is. So it might be front middle the day you play it. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the green and what's going on around the green. And would the strategy of the hole change if the flag was in the back right? If the answer to that is yes, then there's a good likelihood that there's some decent strategy to that hole. If the strategy off the tee doesn't change regardless of where the hole location is, then maybe there isn't a ton of strategy to be thinking about. So I'm looking at the green complex. I try to give Raiders tips. I say, when you look at a green complex, it's not how fast the green is. That's not what makes it good or bad. Is there interesting shapes to the green, or are they all just an oval, right? Or are some of them wide and shallow, and others are skinny and deep, and some are set on diagonals, and some have fingers and stuff like that? Is there interesting shapes to them? Is there interesting contour in and around the greens that you can use and play off of, and it would dictate strategy and playability? Are there different sizes to the greens, or are they all kind of the same size? And then one little thing that I would encourage people to kind of just think about is, if you dropped 10 golf balls around the green, would the recovery shot be the same from all 10? There's many, many golf courses where the answer is yes. Now, you might be in bunker, you might be in rough, but the shot is an open face sand wedge every time. I can't tell you the number of golf courses that I go to look at, to potentially consult. And 18 holes, if you drop 10 balls around them and you hit your shot from 200 yards and you miss the green, you can immediately grab your sand wedge. It's always a sand wedge recovery, right? Now, if you drop 10 balls and every single one of them has a different type of recovery shot, and gives you different options or whatever, I would say, now that's a compelling green complex, so something like that. So that's a little test for something to look at. But by and large, I'm not kind of getting too worried on a hole by hole basis. I'm looking at more the golf course as a whole, and is there variety to the holes and how they work? Is there interesting strategy to the hole? Are the green complexes fun and interesting, and is there variety amongst those? Things like that.
Do you find that you see like noticeable differences in, not necessarily maybe how you rate a course, but the outcomes that you see in rating like a classic course versus a modern course?
Yeah, I think the bigger differentiators to me, and this is something that again I really go way out of my way to try to educate raters on, is that there's probably 20 different things that would bias your rating, right? And in my opinion, the first order of business should be to try to put those things to the side. So when you're rating a golf course, the weather that day, who you played with, how well you played, how fast you played, what the clubhouse was like, what the service was like, what your caddy was like, how good the food was there a cold towel waiting for you, how friendly was the staff. Um, all of these things would impact your impression of the golf course, and they have absolutely nothing to do with how good the golf course is, right? So, I think it's unrealistic for those things not to play into how you feel about a golf course. So, what I encourage raters to do is to try to take note of that. Did I love this place because of the clubhouse or because of the golf course? Did I love it because, you know, it's supposed to cost $300 to play and I got to play it for free? Or this place is uber exclusive, but I got access to it. Why do we actually like this? Is it all this other stuff, or is it actually the golf course? So that's kind of the first thing that I look at. And then when you get into classic versus modern, many of the criteria are the same. How good of a golf course is it? The real differentiator, I think, there is just, if it's a classic golf course, I think kind of the category that is it kind of faithful to its origins or to its roots, right? And does that really matter? But that's kind of the only real difference between the two categories, I would say.
Which that can be a little difficult too, right? Because, like you said, bringing a course to the modern playability that's 100 years old. I mean, a golf course that was built in 1925 plays a whole lot differently than it does now. It can still be a great golf course, or it could be the opposite because we've run past all of the, like you said, the bunker. The bunkers are in the wrong place now because everybody's blasting over the bunkers, or different hazards play differently. So that can be, I guess there's certain times where, and I guess that's where renovation comes into play, is trying to get those courses back to, obviously, to what they were, but in a modern sense.
I would encourage raters not to get too hung up on classic and modern in terms of, I think where that is helpful is it just lumps golf courses into buckets so that they can kind of be assessed amongst their peers, right? The golf course is built around 1900 to 1930. The bulldozer wasn't around back then. The golf courses were largely built for golf. People were interested in playing golf. They went out, they found the appropriate piece of land, and they built golf courses from 1960 to today. There's a much wider range. We're building golf courses in swamps and deserts, on mountaintops. We're building them to sell real estate in housing communities. We're building them to fill hotel rooms. We have bulldozers and excavators. So more than anything, I think it's just a way to kind of lump golf courses amongst their peers, as opposed to differentiating from rating standpoint.
Right. Okay. I think one more, and then we're going to get into some rapid fire, and we'll get you out of here so you can recover from your Casa de Campo trip. What if you could, and like we said, sites are different, golf courses are different, but as a whole, if you could try to kind of bucket things together on this one, like what are some common things that you see that would separate a golf course from a really good golf course to an elite golf course? Like what are
Yeah.
the little things that the great golf courses are just, a step or two away, whether it's, something that they can help or not.
Well, to me, the most important elements of the golf course are the routing and the green complexes. You'd be very hard pressed to find many great golf courses that don't have a great routing and great green complexes. The the other stuff is can be important. It's maybe more important to some than to others, but to me, those two things are really hallmarks of great golf courses, and so those would be things that I would focus on. The other thing that I think is important to recognize is that we can appreciate golf courses that are different and love them for different reasons. We're all enamored by lists and ratings and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is that Cypress Point is a great golf course and Pine Valley is a great golf course, and they're drastically different settings, they're drastically different architecture, but that's okay. You don't have to. You can appreciate them for what they are. To me, the beauty of golf is that the playing field is always different, and so if you're a passionate golfer, far greater joy in experiencing all of them and celebrating them for their uniqueness, as opposed to trying to split hairs as to which one's better. But it makes for good lists and magazines and podcasts and everything else.
It does, but there's also, like you said, there's also courses that are great because they're fun, not necessarily because they're, you know, great traditional what people would think of with super fast greens and super great conditioning, like you're talking about, right? Maybe there should be a top 50 fun golf course list.
I think that would be a great list, right?
That's it. Okay, let's get into some rapid fire. We'll get them out of here. Fabley, why don't you start us off?
All right, sounds good. I think most of these are going to try to be one word answers, maybe just kind of
Good.
what.
Good luck. Good luck with that.
Hey, we're here as long as you are. But I know you haven't had much sleep.
There's no hard and fast rule, but just first thing that comes to mind when I say links or parkland.
Links.
Small greens or large greens?
Small greens.
Bunkers or water hazards?
Bunkers. I'll put the caveat. I loathe man-made water features. I can't stand them. If you've got an existing creek, river, or ocean, take full advantage of
The pond was not in that list.
it.
I can agree with that one though.
Yeah, I like that.
Long par three or drivable par four.
Drivable par four.
Seaside or mountains?
Seaside.
Okay, now this is one course that comes to mind. best clubhouse, non-golf course related, best clubhouse.
Shinnecock.
Solid.
How about course with the best opening hole or best finishing hole?
Best opening hole, I'd go Sand Hills. Finishing hole, Pebble Beach.
Pretty good.
Favorite course that you have played?
Shinnecock.
Most underrated course you've ever played?
Waverley Golf Club in New Zealand.
That's a great answer for that question. So many people are going to go look that up now. Okay, so
They can look up the article I just wrote about it a couple months ago.
Hey, yeah, there you go. Check him out.
And I'm gonna be there in 3 weeks, so I can't wait.
Man's traveling around Dominican Republic, back to California, and then down to New Zealand. That's pretty good. It's a good time of year to go to New Zealand too. Okay, if you could be a member, you only get one course the rest of your life. You could be a member. That's the place you got to play every day. Where are you playing?
Cypress Point.
Okay, that's pretty solid. Only one of the four of us on here, I think, have played that, and he's not even here to comment on it. So, well, this has been great. Thank you. I do have one more literal off the wall question for you. Favorite picture in your office? You got a lot behind you there. What's your favorite one?
Good one.
Oh, he's
I
going
like
scan all
one.
four walls.
I've got posters from different places. I've got hole-in-one shadow boxes. There's a great photo that I believe my friend Rob Perry took of the 15th hole at Chambers Bay. That's hanging up over here that I like. So.
There you go. Well, awesome. This has been great. I really appreciate it. We kind of whittled down from a long list of questions, so we appreciate you doing this, especially on the tail end of a big trip. And I look forward to hopefully working with you some more in the future with Golfweek.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jay. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a
Jay.
great night. You bet.
You too.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Take care.
1